Hello, this video provides an overview and analysis of Act 2, Scene 2 of the play Hamlet. Act 2, Scene 1 began with Polonius recruiting Reynaldo to spy on his son Laertes, and Act 2, Scene 2 begins with Hamlet's parents, Claudius and Gertrude, recruiting Hamlet's boyhood friends, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, to spy on the melancholy prince. The psychic space of Elsinore is a paranoid fable where people are always spying on one another as a routine practice. In this kind of environment, anyone I'm talking to might be playing a role in relation to their project of surveilling me. The simplicity of Act 1, where the soldiers responded to questions of who they were with straightforward answers, is far behind us. This is a world where people's identities consist of veiled layers of secret agendas. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern have something in common with the archetypal false friend fellowship from Everyman. The doubling of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern's characters helps to kind of diffuse their identities so that they seem interchangeable and hence kind of disposable. In any event, like all of Claudius's licked spittles, they're happy to curry the king's favor for the price of spying on their childhood friend Hamlet. Contrast Hamlet's real friend, Horatio, a noble and upright soul of truth and faithfulness. Claudius attends to a matter of state. It appears that Claudius's efforts to achieve a diplomatic solution to the threat from Fortinbras has been perfectly successful, and Fortinbras has turned his military aggression on the Poles, a mutual enemy of the Danes and the Norwegians. Fortinbras simply asks for rights to pass through Claudius's lands to go fight the Poles, and Claudius grants it. This is mostly important because it puts Hamlet and Fortinbras on crossing paths, which helps to schematize the contrast between these two characters. It's also interesting that Claudius is a capable and successful king. Hamlet's hate for Claudius has nothing to do with how he does his job. It's about who Claudius is, both as a person, his uncle, and as a villain, his father's murderer. This could be seen as an example of Hamlet's ideal of faithfulness to essential truth in a world of deceptive appearances. Polonius has even more important news for his king, however. He has uncovered the cause of Hamlet's lunacy. In Act 1, Hamlet had seemed inappropriately bereaved, but now everyone seems to agree that he's gone mad. It is implied that Hamlet might have been doing other eccentric things between Act 1 and Act 2, aside from his encounter with Ophelia. Now Polonius has it all figured out. Hamlet's love letters to Ophelia clearly indicate that he was in love with her, and now that Polonius has commanded Ophelia to break up with him, Hamlet is mad for love. This hypothesis must come as a relief for Claudius and Gertrude, since Gertrude assumes Hamlet's been driven crazy by her marriage to her brother-in-law, and Claudius may suspect, although he never explicitly says so, that Hamlet might know about Claudius's dirty little secret. Polonius announces a plan to recruit Ophelia as another domestic spy to explore his hypothesis further. But here comes Hamlet now, walking and reading as he likes to do. Polonius, the spy master, approaches Hamlet to practice a little spycraft of his own. He goes in to strike up some casual conversation, just as he had instructed Reynaldo to do. Hamlet parries Polonius's advancements, pretending not to know him and insulting him by pretending to think that he is the local fish merchant. When Polonius protests that he is not a fish merchant, Hamlet insults him again by wishing that he were as honest as a fish merchant. Hamlet and Polonius constitute one of the great comic duos in the history of world literature. Hamlet continues to toy with his ex-girlfriend's father, whom he must suspect of being responsible for Ophelia's dumping of him, resulting in a number of great lines. He implies that Polonius's daughter's pregnancy would be akin to the infestation of maggots in a dead dog, and that in any event, any child that sprang from Polonius's lineage should best be not born at all. When Polonius changes the subject to ask Hamlet what he's reading, Hamlet replies, "Words, words, words," both mocking Polonius's own inane attempts at conversation, as well as suggesting the meaninglessness of all human speech. When Polonius asks Hamlet if he's going to go inside, Hamlet says that yes, he will go inside his grave, mock pretending to be the suicidal person he is. Needless to say, Hamlet successfully rebuffs Polonius's attempts to get into his head. Oh, but here come Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Maybe they'll have better luck. It is unclear to what extent Hamlet immediately recognizes that they are here to spy on him. Different Hamlets play it in different ways. The following exchange is one of the most famous parts of the play, containing some of Hamlet's most famous lines, but the ambiguity of whether Hamlet is saying these things because he really thinks them, or whether he's saying them to befuddle and confuse his false friends, subtends the whole scene with a fundamental instability that may be the real theme of the entire scene and of the entire play. The fact that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are playing a part angles Hamlet into having to play a part. Maybe the most profound level of the whole thing is that he's playing the part of himself, pretending to be what he is, as an oxymoronical performance of authenticity. First, Hamlet exchanges banal pleasantries with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, and then he throws them, and us, a bone to chew on. What have you deserved at the hands of fortune, that she sends you to prison hither? Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are like, prison? What do you mean? Hamlet says, Denmark's a prison. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are like, well, then you could just say the whole world is a prison. Hamlet's like, it sure is. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are like, we don't think so. And Hamlet says, why then 'tis none to you, for there is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. To me, it is a prison. Here, Hamlet expresses a subjectivist psychology, where everyone is trapped in the prison of their own minds, but Rosencrantz and Guildenstern don't get it. They think Hamlet says Denmark is a prison because he's too ambitious, like Fortinbras. He wants to take over more territory and make Denmark bigger. But that's obviously not it. Hamlet says, oh God, I could be bounded in a nutshell and count myself a king of infinite space. More radical subjectivism. Were it not that I have bad dreams. Hamlet's bad dreams are his father in hell, his murderous uncle having sex with his mom, his own girlfriend and now his childhood companions conspiring against him. But Rosencrantz and Guildenstern again fail to get it. They think he's still talking about his political ambitions. Maybe this is where Hamlet starts to get suspicious, because now Hamlet asks Rosencrantz and Guildenstern why they're here. And they are too stupid to successfully lie to him, so he tells them that he can figure out that the king and queen sent them to spy on him. Why? Well, here's where we get to some of the really famous stuff. I don't have a choice. I have to quote the whole thing. I have of late, but wherefore I know not, lost all my mirth, forgone all custom of exercises, and indeed it goes so heavily with my disposition, that this goodly frame, the earth, seems to me a sterile promontory. This most excellent canopy, the air, look you, this brave o'erhanging firmament, this majestical roof, fretted with golden fire. Why, it appeareth nothing to me but a foul and pestilent congregation of vapors. What a piece of work is a man! How noble in reason, how infinite in faculties, in form and moving, how express and admirable, in action how like an angel, in apprehension how like a god, the beauty of the world, the paragon of animals. And yet, to me, what is this quintessence of dust? This what a piece of work is man part is one of Renaissance Europe's most ecstatic statements about the glory of the human being in form, mind, and spirit. It is frequently quoted out of context as a statement about how perfect human beings are. Of course, in context, it is a statement about how Hamlet still finds the atmosphere to be full of disease, and a human being to be a shape of dust and death. And then we also have no idea if Hamlet is speaking from his heart, or if he is just stringing along Rosencrantz and Guildenstern with his madness routine, or if it's some strange combination of both. This exchange is interrupted by the chance arrival of the players to Elsinore. The players are a wandering band of theater people who make a living by traveling around from town to town to put on shows. The arrival of the players into Hamlet's play completely changes Hamlet's mood. No longer the melancholy moper of Act 1, nor the satirical comic poet he has been so far in Act 2, he is now a giddy fanboy. Hamlet loves theater so much, it turns out, that he completely falls out of character and historical temporality altogether to launch into a gossipy inquiry about the state of the London theater scene of around 1600, the time when Hamlet was originally written and performed. Here it is as if the personality of Hamlet phases into the personality of Shakespeare in a way that adds another ontological twist to the imagery of the play as a metaphor for the world, and the world as a metaphor for a play. It's as if Shakespeare had verse jumped into Hamlet's body to further destabilize our sense of reality. Hamlet knows this band of players, and he saw them perform a particular play once that had a certain speech in it. It was a long time ago, so we can only remember the first 12 lines of the speech, which he rattles off enthusiastically before begging the leading player to recite the rest. The leading player recites the speech, which is about an episode during the siege of Troy, when the Greek Pyrrhus butchers the old Trojan king Priam, as Priam's wife looked on in horror. The leading player is such a good actor that he bursts into tears. Polonius objects that it's too emotional, too melodramatic, but Hamlet replies angrily that it's a great speech and a great performance. It makes Hamlet think about the convoluted relationship between lying and the truth. This actor is reciting a speech about fictional characters, and yet real tears come to the actor's eyes. Can lying be a way of reaching the truth? Can fiction access a layer of reality that might actually be more genuine than what you find in the actual world, especially when your world is Elsinore and it's full of liars and rogues and secret murderers? Of course, the upshot is that Hamlet conceives the idea of the play within a play. He'll get the players to put on a play about a guy who kills his brother with ear poison and then takes his wife and his throne, and he'll see how Claudius reacts. At this point, it is evident that Hamlet's plan to kill Claudius has gotten more convoluted than it would be, for example, for, say, Beowulf. Rather than just stabbing Claudius through the heart, Hamlet's plan gets diverted into this theatrical production. Does Hamlet have legitimate questions about the ghost's reality? Or is he, as it appears, much more temperamentally inclined to be a playwright than the hero of a revenge tragedy? It is easy to read Hamlet's play within a play strategy as a way for Hamlet to use art to work through his complicated feelings. Some people have speculated that Hamlet can't kill his uncle because he really wants to be his uncle, to live out the Freudian fantasy of murdering his dad and marrying his mom. In this case, writing the play is an act of sublimation that allows him to enter into the lives of his dad, his mom, and his stepdad, and to recast himself as their god and master. These are the kinds of questions that keep Hamlet scholars up at night, and that have ensured the longevity and bottomlessness of both Hamlet the play and Hamlet the character.